Hey, how you doing, everybody? Intended to start a lot earlier, but here we are. And how about that? The Las Vegas Raiders, pulled
Intended to
out
start a lot earlier, but here we are. And how about that?
the Las Vegas Raiders didn't eke out a win. They crushed, crushed, crushed. Reminds me of that line from one of my favorite Lost in Space episodes where the robot was programmed to destroy. He would say, crush, kill, destroy. Well, that robot was the Raiders because that's precisely what they did to the Broncos on the Sunday. That really they should have. You take a team that's lesser and you keep them there. No, what I said had nothing to do with the resignation, firing of now former head coach John Gruden or the emails or any of the sad story that led up to it. Instead, we had our new coach, our special teams coach, who came in and served more than wonderfully as the Raiders head coach. And this is the statement that he gave after the game during the press conference. And it was certainly a virtuoso. Here is Coach Basia right here.
The effort we played with today, we've really been playing with outstanding effort. We came up, I think we were +4 in the turnovers. Scored on the first drive of the first half, first drive of the second half. Did a great job with managing time going into the second half and ended up with points there. Big touchdown by Kenyon. Field position off of the kicking game, I thought did a good job. Good job of setting our defense up once and setting our defense on. Certainly some of the kickoffs early in the game. Again, anytime you get in a field position like that, drives like that, and then be +4 in the turnovers, you have a chance to win. So I'll be happy to take the next question.
And that's it. And that's it. Nothing about the past, just almost Belichickian, dare I say. He stuck to the statistics, made comments about nothing else, and then opened it up for questions. And you can't ask for better presentation. In other words, by his behavior, he says, you know what? Let's get on with it. Let's move on with it. And getting on and moving on with it is something that really needed to happen after what happened last week. What I love about this victory is something that should be celebrated, should be noted, should be talked about and discussed. And of course, that's why I'm doing it here on this live stream, right? Is a very subtle change in the offense, and something that I'll bet probably you didn't notice. Well, I'm not going to say that you didn't notice. I'm going to give you credit because I'm going to say you did notice it. Okay. Let me explain it this way statistically. When the Raiders beat the Baltimore Ravens in overtime, the average yards per passing for that game was 8.4. Then we went to Pittsburgh. It went up considerably to 10.2 yards per play, yards per play passing. Then against our next opponent, which was the Pittsburgh Steelers, it kicked up even more to roughly 12 yards passing average. And then after the Pittsburgh game, it went down. It went down just a little bit, well, to about 5.7 yards. And against the Chargers, it clocked in at 5.7. And then against the Bears, once again, it was just over 5 yards passing. So we were headed on a downward trend. Why? Well, NFL organizations do a great job of analyzing what you do statistically and also schematically and coming up with a plan for what you're going to do. The more games you play through a season, the more information each team stores on the other team, which gives the next opponent a better idea of how to attack your schemes. So by the time we played the Chargers, our offense was pretty much figured out. And I remind you that during the stretch, we played Miami, for example, where we had actually passing yards average of 9. Then we went to 5.4 and against the Chargers, and then 5.7 against the Bears. But throughout those games, you'll remember, we started off slow, real slow. So slow that we spent most of the game doing what? Catching up. That seemed to be the hallmark of the team. And that was a function of how the opponents would structure their defenses to stop our offenses and respond to our tendencies. In other words, what kind of plays we were most likely to call in different situations, right? And out of different formations, right? That was the John Gruden signature, okay? Short passing, tough running. That's been a staple of his for a long time. He just had a modern variation of it. And frankly speaking, it worked until teams caught up with how to attack it with man for man and press defenses and everything else. And Coach Gruden was responding with screens and it wasn't working. Of course, we had our offensive line injury problems too. But the bottom line is opponents were zeroing in on what we did. Then came the resignation. And out with Coach Gruden went that style of offense within what the Raiders do. And what replaced it was a more classic approach. We went from, and this is how dramatic this change was, as evidenced by this pass to Kenyon Drake that I captured. Let me run this real quick and then talk about it.
But you didn't notice? Well, you know, I'm not going to say that you didn't notice. I'm going to give you credit because I'm going to say you did notice it, okay? Let me explain it this way, statistically.
And folks, that's actually a replay of my my play. So let me go back in history and grab what I thought was the right play, and go from there. And I'll just type Raiders Drake, and here we go. This is the right one that I've dialed up. This one, okay? And let's have a look at this. And here we are. Here is the play.
Hey, everybody, a quick review of the touchdown because with Rick Basia as the coach and Greg Olsen calling the plays, the Raiders have went back to classic Al Davis football. This is Kenyon Drake next to Derek Carr. And what you'll find is that instead of just a short pass to Drake, look what he does. Drake goes out to the flat, and then he turns up. That is a classic Al Davis pattern that goes back to the 60s, the late 60s, and he scores. Al Davis popularized throwing to the backs, not just out of the backfield, but deep. And this is something that John Gruden hadn't done while he was the coach. But it's a new staple, really an old staple, but reintroduced to the Raiders with Greg Olsen as the offensive coordinator and Rich Baccia as the head coach. Touchdown Raiders. Take one more look at that. with Carr getting the snap. And take a look. Notice the split end is inside. And the reason why the split end is inside there is because you want to draw the cornerback in. See that? There's nobody for the halfback. Touchdown. There we go. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com. That ends this broadcast.
Yeah, so that's one of the big differences. The other was something we hadn't seen in a few games, and that was a direct shot to Darren Waller right down the pike, something that I've seen the Carolina Panthers run this year with their tight end and Joe Brady as their offensive play caller. Point I'm making is that when you think about Waller, similar pattern with Henry Ruggs and then Kenyon Drake, what each one of those passes and those touchdown passes had in common was that either they were deep throws, but they weren't the kind of deep throws from another perspective that the Raiders of the 70s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s implemented. In other words, going all the way downfield and then cutting, say 15 or 16 yards downfield and running an in pattern or post pattern. These plays were such that you laid the ball out. Now, what does that mean? It means you got rid of the ball after holding on to it for a shorter period of time, as opposed to waiting for the receiver to break way downfield, which stresses your offensive line. So what the Raiders were able to do was get the ball out of the quarterback's hands and to their fleet receivers faster, but design the play with a greater certainty that that receiver would be open for a touchdown. That's what was achieved. Now, again, where does this difference show up? In yards per passing. Because of this new approach, off books until now, the Raiders went from 5.7 yards average passing, or just over 5 yards passing for the two previous games, to over 12 yards again this game. More efficient, more effective, more lethal. Now, the question you might have is, well, is this it? Is this going to work? And I think the best answer to that is, well, it's obviously working well because there's a different approach. But it will take NFL opponents another 3 to 4 games to catch up with that approach. And then we'll see where the Raiders are in terms of adjustment. The good news is that with this new old passing game, if you will, more of a Mike Martz approach with a twist, which I'll get to in a second, it means the Raiders have a greater repertoire of ways to hit you through the air. But it also means, and this is, I think, an equally large statement, the Raiders under Coach Basia, and I want to pronounce his name correctly, but are not going to be in a position where they start games from behind. They are going to be the aggressor. They are going to take the game to the opponent and work to score first, build up a lead, and then run out the clock. The old Bill Walsh style, really, and Bill Walsh and Al Davis style of attacking a defense, and also approach to managing a game. So all this is welcome. Unfortunately, it had to happen this way. I've said what I said about that before, and again, I said this before, and I'll say it again. Friends don't let friends drive drunk. Friends don't let friends write racist, sexist, and misogynistic emails. So what we didn't see, as you know, was what was written back to him. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, still a big mess. But that's out of the way. What we have to enjoy is this great victory and this new old approach to the Raiders passing game. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com. That ends this broadcast.